How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. Time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Let's get into the books I read this week. So, starting over in DC, we have John Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America issue number 7. Cy Spurrier is on this one, Aaron Campbell, and Jordi Belair. This is continuing the road trip across America. We finally made it to the West Coast. John is actually teaming up or aligns himself with Dr. Diablo. Now, Dr. Diablo, inside this issue, is trying to remember some key moments in his life, some key things that he did, some betrayals, some sacrifices, some cults that he was running with back in the day, using some very powerful artifacts that John is still in the process of recovering, like dreams, sand, and whatnot. There's a really interesting relationship with the two in the beginning. John kind of uses him and betrays his trust and uses his knowledge of these artifacts and whatnot to his advantage. And also there's a little bit of a revenge mission built into this as well. It's a beautifully drawn book. I had to read it a couple of times to pick up on all the different nuances, but that's like the story of this whole run right here. You're not going to get everything in the first read. You got to read it a couple of times. It's brutal at some moments. Dr. Diablo is a sinister dude in here. We explore some of his past. We know how he's influenced these very powerful people within the United States, but also has suppressed influence, and he's used a lot of mythical, magical artifacts to do so. And we're taking to some pretty dramatic places within this book. So this is a really, really spectacular read. It takes a couple of reads to get all the nuances in here. Great issue though. Let me know if you read it. Absolute Power tie-in, we have Wonder Woman issue number 11. I really do not like these tie-in issues to these events. I don't care what the event is, but I'm trying to remain open-minded with the Absolute Power run in general. And, so far, so good, I suppose. But we're just taken out of things. We just got our groove again with Wonder Woman. And now we are dealing with Amanda Waller and all the Amazemo robots and whatnot. And all of her companions just getting eaten up by these different robots, losing all their power. So that's basically what's going on inside of here. So if you want to see Wonder Woman and her little entourage take on this initial threat and what that looks like, you're going to get that inside of here, but don't expect any kind of progression in the main Wonder Woman run. So with that said, there is an amazing backstory, of course, with our Trinity, and they are going to a Black Canary concert, and I absolutely love this. Damian is so against this. Trinity is jumping up and down in joy, and of course, Jonathan is just doing what Jonathan does, trying to keep Damian from going insane. But it's like love at first sight right here, and he totally becomes a canary, which is like this universe's version of a Swiftie. And they have some really cool conversations. And even one of the villains they fight towards the end is a canary, and they share that passion. So, of course, the backstory is the shining light in Wonder Woman issue number 11. Unfortunately, it's part of a tie-in, so that definitely drags it down. Let me know what you guys thought. Dark Knights of Steel, All Winter issue number 11. I did not read the first volume, but I thought I'd check this one out, see what's going on in here since it's a new number 1. So I don't have a lot of context for what exactly happened. I do know it takes all the avatars, all the characters from the DC universe or whatever that might be, and it puts them in this, more primitive Viking type setting. And we get to actually see the avatars or the essence of the character shine through in this kind of an era versus a more modern day kind of a thing. So we have Vandal Savage in here. Of course, we have a bunch of other characters portrayed inside of here. We have Destro, which is what this book is basically focused on. He is trying to just earn his coin. You know what I mean? He's a mercenary. He's taking out people. He's ending wars, things like that. And Vandal Savage wants him on the payroll permanently, but whatever. We're going to unpack that a little bit more. He sends him on a new quest right now. Then he ends up finding his old family, specifically this woman. I'm not going to spoil all that just in case that's a new thing. And there's this new magic in the land is revealed at the end. And of course, we're going to look into more of that later on. So Dark Knights of Steel, All Winter. I thought it was pretty good. I haven't read volume number 1, but this issue was surprisingly good. Let me know if you read it down below. Superman issue number 16. Again, we're tied into the Absolute Power event right here. Amazing cover from Lobo. So getting into this one, we were teased a lot in a bunch of different books. Superman getting shot at the top of this building, trying to stop this robbery. This scene over here, we've seen that many different times in the back of different books. So we're actually living through those moments right now. Really cool and creative opening for this book. Superman's kind of reliving a memory, but it turns into a nightmare. And I thought that was really cool. We pick up with a bunch of DC heroes, or the remaining ones, over at the Fortress of Solitude. Superman just kind of, he survived his surgery, he's doing okay, but he's depowered. He doesn't really know what's going on. So he's relying on a lot of different characters, first off, just to get along, and second, to figure out what they're going to be doing next. You know what I mean? So like there's this all-out assault going on across the DC universe, and there's still some people out in the field right now. Some people that are not necessarily on the radar of Amanda Waller. They might be super powered, but they're not like full-fledged heroes, or they're not trying to be heroes. They're just trying to live with their meta-human abilities. And that's what this book also focuses on, some of those people as well. We get a cool reveal at the end. I won't spoil that, but we have like Task Force 7 like going around trying to round people up. So that's pretty cool. I'm thinking the main takeaway for this book is basically everyone's in hiding right now, or they've been taken out already. So we're trying to figure out who's still around, what the status is on everybody. And we explore that inside of Superman issue number 16. Let me know if you guys read this one down below. Mark Waid and Dan Mora on World's Finest issue number 29. This should be the conclusion of this arc here, so you can jump into number 30 if you've been wanting to get on and you don't want to get in halfway through some big event. But all the DC heroes right here are taking on 5th dimensional and 6th dimensional beings. It was a really fun show with Mr. Mistel Picklick, or however you say his name. All of him and his friends are showing up right now, teaming up with all the different DC heroes and taking on this great big 6th dimensional being. And of course, it takes like the ultimate combined power of all the different magic users that are still around to take this threat out. And that's exactly what we do here. A lot of like character analogs are showing up inside of here. It's an exciting issue. Lots of cool visual treats. Compositions are interesting, and just flooded with a bunch of different characters. So I think ultimately it was really good. This Dan Mora and Mark Waid run has been really, really exciting. So I really recommend checking this one out in trade format if you haven't yet. And if you want to jump in, you can start over on issue number 30. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. World's Finest, one of the best DC books out there. Let me know if you're reading it. Let's jump over to Ultimate X-Men issue number 5 from Peach Momoko. Peach Momoko on the interiors and cover. That should be a great selling point right there, and I think it is for sure. But the problem for me is the story is a little bit dragging, to be honest with you. There's a lot of young characters in here, a lot of school-age kids, and they're very similar, and it's just hard to kind of keep them straight. There's this brooding guy in the corner who we think and know is like the ultimate source of this negative energy, this shadow monster that's invading people's dreams or minds and telling them to do things that they shouldn't do. And of course, we're trying to explore our own main character's powers as well, and we're slowly putting together this X-Men team. And finally, towards the end, we get a hint of what that might actually look like when it's all said and done. And, it only took 5 issues to do that. But, like I said, the interiors are good. I wish I could show you, 2 pages of consistent art, because there's so many ads in this book, too. But, you're going to get a lot of this stuff, which is fine. A couple issues ago, we had tons and tons of action, which is probably my favorite issue so far. But, a lot of the time it's going to be some kids talking about their powers and things like that. There's going to be a lot of dreamy sequences and some emotional paneling and things like that. But at the end of the day, I feel like we're just still missing something in the storytelling department to really connect everything. And maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. And I'm glad that so many people are loving this book, but it's on the bottom of my list for the Ultimate Books. But it's Peach Momoko interior and cover. So, it's still good. Let me know if you're reading it down below. Jason Aaron on Namor, issue number 1. I was excited for this book because first off, the cover is really interesting, and I would like to see a Namor that's been locked up, and what can he do to break out and get control of the seas yet again. Cool issue. I don't exactly know how Namor got here, but I don't really think it matters. But he's locked up in this high-tech security prison. It's in the middle of the ocean. He's deprived of water. There's a really cool opening scene between him and these abusive guards, and they're starving him for his water, and they're giving him a certain fluid, but it's not exactly fresh water, if you know what I mean. So the first part of this book is just telling you how bad Namor has got it, and some of these guards are just absolutely ruthless in here. So we go through that part first, and then we get a little history lesson about how hard Namor had it growing up. There was a lot of kids around him that were different colored skin and stuff like that. They didn't treat him fairly. They actually tried to assassinate him, but he ultimately won the heart of his people. And we realize over time that things had become very chaotic underneath the water since Namor has gone. There's basically 7 different tribes that are at war right now. And so Namor, basically has to go back in there, kick everyone's ass, and reunite the oceans into one big force like they used to be. So that's what we're going to be doing inside of this book. Even some of Namor's enemies or whatever in the past are trying to get him to go on this mission, and he's accepted that responsibility and he's diving back in. A lot of cool moments in this book too. So this book kind of had it all. It had a cool history lesson on Namor himself. It put him in a weird situation in the beginning, and now it's like a call to duty kind of a thing right now that he's going to be undertaking. So Namor issue number 1, I dug it. Did you guys read it? Let me know down below. All right, next from Marvel, we have Stephanie Phillips on Phoenix issue number 1. Great variant cover on here too. So what is this one all about? First, we get a reminder about how badass of a thing Phoenix is and its assimilation with Jean Grey. We are focusing on this one planet that has these occultists on there, and the leader of this religion is preaching to his followers just because their sun is about to explode. And the perspective in the beginning of the story is of his daughter. And so she's kind of like telling us, the reader, what's going on and what her upbringing was like and what his experience has been like to get to the position he's in. Their sun's going to explode. All of a sudden, the Phoenix shows up and basically absorbs all that power and saves the day, even though they have some kind of a fear from her because she's this cosmic entity that just destroys things, right? This is a retelling of her story basically for them. But Nova is on this one prison ship right now, which is under attack or is in some kind of a distress. Some prisoners are escaping, so he calls to Phoenix's aid. There's some really cool scenery of her flying in to save the day and whatnot, and so she kind of helps all that as well. Now, the one cool thing about this book is not all the prisoners are accounted for. Some of them actually escape, and we get to see what kind of path of destruction they're leaving in their wake. And some of the civilizations that are getting wiped out by these prisoners that are escaping are now blaming Phoenix for not being able to stop this whole thing to begin with, and so now we're kind of back at ground zero. But interesting story. The pacing was really good. I like the interior art. The cast of characters so far has been cool. So Phoenix #1, better than expected. Did you guys read it? Let me know down below. Fish Flies issue #7 from Jeff Lemire, the conclusion of this run right here. This is going to make a great collected read because I got to be honest with you, when I started reading issue #7, I forgot where we were with the story. It feels like it comes out every 2 months, and that really hurt it. Now, I know he's a one-man army when it comes to putting this book together, but he's got some people on letters and design and background assistance and stuff like that. But again, I think this book is going to really benefit from a trade read because I couldn't remember all the different spots. This issue right here is a little trippy. There's a little bit of time dilation or something like that, or overlapping timelines, and it all talks about this cycle that just keeps repeating, this cycle that we were introduced to and like this old-timey flashback about like where this curse almost came from. And so we're dealing with a little bit of that with some other kind of time issues, and things kind of like progress pretty quickly inside this issue in a way that was almost confusing to me. So what I need to do is I need to sit down and read this probably in just one big sitting, or maybe two, because it's a long story, just to see if I can consume the story and make it more cohesive. But with that said, cool artwork, great interiors. It's an emotional story for sure, but again, I think you lose a little bit of it because of the release schedule. With that said, though, I still recommend the series if you haven't read it yet, especially now that you can consume it in one sitting if you'd like to. Jeff Lemire is a great storyteller. He puts a lot of emotion inside of his books, so I highly recommend picking up anything he's been doing as of late. But issue #7's out right now. I got to reread the whole series to really get a good opinion about it. Let me know if you read it, though, down below. All right, now we have Destro issue #2 from Dan Waters. Really exciting book. I loved issue #1. Destro had a bunch of different arms dealers together at this big like convention or something like that in the middle of nowhere. Very, very secret. And it's under attack. And now he's trying to figure out who the heck is actually able to do that. Now he's blaming the twins right here that we know and love from the G.I. Joe universe. But the twins are also spinning their own narrative that Destro is this huge threat that they need to get rid of. And he sabotaged his own event and is blaming it on them. So it's this really cool moment in here where you have one page with Destro preaching to his army of folks, and you have the twins doing the exact same thing, and you can just see how the narrative can get spun based on who's saying what. Ultimately, it leads to a conversation, somewhat of an alliance between the two, and I'll let you guys figure out all the details between that. But just a moment of drama and anxiety through this whole thing. So we're going to be seeing what's going on in future issues here. This book has been handled really well, I think. Destro is a character that is kind of like a fan favorite, but I've never gotten this close to the character before, and I'm really excited to see where they take it. #2's out, and it's great. Let me know if you read it. All right, jumping over to Ahoy Comics, we have My Bad issue #3, Escape from Peculiar Island. This book is all about villain and superhero satire, so if you're into that kind of thing, I think you're going to really enjoy this. There are a couple different short stories, some of them continuing past events that we covered in other issues, but a lot of this are superheroes just dealing in really weird ways, their current situations and their alliances with each other, things like that. And it's always layered in satire, which is just fun. So it's a superhero book, it's a villain book, but it's not traditional. And I think if you're familiar with Mark Russell's type of writing, when he talks about that kind of stuff, the way he does, then I think you might dig this one. So you might want to try it out. It's not nearly as heavy as like a Traveling to Mars or a Second Coming, something like that, but it does have its moments for sure. And it's pretty funny, and there's different villains and heroes that they exaggerate in here and put them in weird situations. So My Bad issue #3. Let me know if you're reading it down below. Next up, Mugshots issue #2 from Mad Cave Studios. Really cool book if you're into cop, detective, mobster kinds of stories, this is going to be a really good one for you to unpack, so you can check that one out. We have this mob scene that's running the show right now. They're into human trafficking. They got the cops on the payroll and things like that, but there's also this other guy who's in and out of that scene, who's been out for a long time. I think his niece gets abducted, or so they think, and now he's blaming this mob boss who is highly connected with all that, who they have a history with, and they might be thinking that it's a way to get back at him or something like that. And so we're dealing with all that right now. There's a lot of family drama in here, and there's a lot of action as well. And everything seems to be connected. This is definitely one of those books where like you could have a wall with like string connecting all the different pieces, and just to kind of help you piece it all together. But it's a pretty interesting book. I like the construction of it. I like the presentation of it. The color scheme is very, very simple, but it works. It's definitely a bang for your buck. It feels like it's a double-sized issue because they're not littered like DC and Marvel books with ads. So there's plenty to consume here. So Mugshots issue number 2. I'm digging it so far. Let me know if you're reading it though down below. Man's Best issue number 5, the conclusion of this run as well. Another book that would benefit from a trade read, to be honest with you, because it felt like going into number 5 that I didn't even read number 4, and I definitely did. So I had to remind myself where the heck we actually were with this. Support animals in space, they get attacked, they get separated from their owners, there's these mechanical beasts that are chasing them down, they're having some leadership issues or trust issues amongst their team, they're telekinetic so they can talk to each other, they have these suits that have different abilities and whatnot. So they're learning how to work as a team. And so they're trying to find their way home, essentially. They learn some dark secrets from their masters, from specifically this one woman who's raised them and has sent them on this mission. So we're figuring all that out right now, like what her true intentions are. And is it something we can live with? Can we align with her? Can we not? Do we need to stop her? Things like that. So we go through a lot of that kind of conversation and scenery inside of here. Of course, there's like weird alien beasts and other humans that we're dealing with inside the issue as well. So it's, a lot of emotion, a lot of like, we're doing the right thing, right? Kind of conversations happening right there, and some sacrifices on the hero side as well to, save the day. So, I think story-wise, there's definitely something there. I think it would benefit from a trade read. The saving grace in this entire book, though, is the art. The art's incredible in this book. I'm loving that one. It's so creative, and it's such a wonky story to begin with that, like, you have to have somebody that can match that tone, and, like, Jesse does a great job of that, so I'm not worried about that. Trade read for sure. Man's Best issue number 5, wrapping up right here. Let me know if you read it. Psychodrama Illustrated issue number 8 from Gilbert Hernandez, like a tie-in issue for Love and Rockets. So if you're into the Fritz character, the actress, I think you might enjoy this one. This is a part 2 of this movie that she's on, so it's kind of like a meta story in a way. It's definitely a period piece. She's in this town right now. She's like a lady of the night. She's like the emperor's main squeeze, and she also is dealing with like some stalkers and things like that. She befriends this young farm boy who tells her to stand up for herself, gives her a knife, and then actually she betrays him once she actually defends herself. The boy gets sentenced to death, and this is like a weird story of like his ghost coming back to haunt her in a way, in a very weird way, and the ghost of his father as well. I don't know what the heck's going on. I mean, it was a fun, interesting read, but like not necessary. But if you're into the Hernandez brothers, you love Love and Rockets, and you're into this kind of stuff, you know who you are. You're going to like it. Let me know if you read it though. All right, and last but not least, we have Joe Matt's Peep Show issue number 15. Now, I had no experience with this series, with this creator at all going in, but when Fantagraphics puts out a single issue book, I try to pick it up because their characters and their creators usually have a long lineage in the comic world, and their quality is always better than most publishers, so I want to check this one out, see what's up. Basically, if you like Dan Clowes kinds of stuff, it's very reminiscent of that. It's a 8-panel grid system right here, showcasing different moments in this guy's life, mostly focusing around his like obsessions and his relationships and the failed relationships that he's had. But it's also diving deep like into his friendships and his psyche and his rationale and things like that. Like the world's out to get him. Nobody understands him. Why is he so weird? Why aren't his relationships working? Things like that. There's a lot of intimate moments inside of this book, and I think it's a really cool showcase of somebody's life in like a real way. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you might enjoy this one. What I didn't know was Joe Matt actually died while writing, I believe, this book, but he actually passed away of a heart attack last year, and friends and family found this book, got it completed, and actually sent it off to Fantagraphics to get published. So this is unfortunately going to be our last issue. I think it started in the late 80s, if I'm not mistaken, so it takes a long time for these different books to come out, but this unfortunately seems like it's going to be our final issue. So that was kind of sad to learn, but after reading the issue and then learning all that, like this wave of perspective hit me, and it's just like such a cool thing that we actually got to have this issue in our hands. So condolences to the family for sure, but thank you so much for reaching out to Fantagraphics and putting this book out ultimately. But guys, let me know if you got Peep Show or if you've been reading it since the 80s. I really want to know that too. Let me know if you read it though, down below. Well, guys, that's all I read this week. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down below in the comments what you read and what your favorite books of the week were. While you're down there, like, subscribe, share, hit the bell notification to be alerted whenever I put out new videos. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the comments.